Everyone. It's Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. How are you? It's good to see you again, or maybe you're just seeing me or just listening to me for the first time. How are you? We're here on this is our secret podcast, Emil Amok's Takeout, my takes on all things considerable. We talk about the news, we talk about stuff, we talk about things Monday through Friday. All right, I took a day off yesterday. I had some writing to do. Check out the writing on substack.com, Emil Amok, also on patreon.com/Emil Amok. Thinking about the weekend with Bashar al-Assad, but a lot of people, I think, have maybe they have a hard time even identifying Syria on the map. This is a big deal. And it was a surprise. I was all set to talk about some of the surprise history about Pearl Harbor that's worth revisiting because it tells you about where Asian America was back in 1941. There was no Asian America. There were Asians in America. There was no Asian America until later on in the 60s when those racist quotas were lifted in the 1965 Immigration Act. But I just think it's worth noting that many Asian Americans would just assume that, back in the 40s, Asians who were here were all in solidarity. We were just one big happy family. And the fact is, we weren't. There was a pecking order, and that was especially true in California, where if you were Filipino, you're in the bottom. The Chinese were here longest, and they were pretty much at the top. That's why when people say Asian American, they think Chinese. The Japanese were close, right? They were merchants and storekeepers. They had more money. And so they were, if not more populous than the Chinese, they were at the top of the pecking order in many areas, particularly in California. Filipinos in the bottom. Hindus weren't high up. There were a handful of Hindus, Asian Indians back then. And when Pearl Harbor hit, the Japanese were the big villain, and all the Asians in America took advantage of that too, just as the whites did. So it wasn't just the whites who were using the J word, calling the Japanese the word that rhymes with naps. It wasn't just the whites who were looking at Japanese askance and trying to pull them down and discriminating against them. It was also the Filipinos, the Chinese. And in fact, because everyone thought if you were Chinese or Filipino that you were Japanese, many of them resorted to carrying a button or a sign that said, hey, I'm not Japanese. I'm not, although they used the one syllable word for that. So I was all set to talk about it. It's always worth talking about that because you are reminded about what Asian America really is. It's just some political construct. And where we are now is not where we were 80 years ago. And where we are now is not even where we were 50 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago. In a lot of ways, we're so diverse and we're always being reformulated because new immigration. Hard to say where we are as a group. And then, we always want to rename us. Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander is the latest. We were Asian American Pacific Islander. We were APA, Asian Pacific Americans. And then at the very beginning, we were just Asian Americans. So, you get a full evolution about who we are as a people, as a group, when you consider our Pearl Harbor history, which is what I was prepared to talk about this past weekend, right? And then starting Saturday and then Sunday, and then, what's going on in Syria? And it was the ouster of a dictator. The rebels took them a concentrated 14 days, but over the course of 50 years of Assad rule, they were able to undo the dictatorship and make the dictator, Bashar al-Assad, seek refuge with his puppet master patron, Vladimir Putin, in Russia. And I know that there are Asian Americans who fled dictatorships. They know the joy. They know the joy that was felt by people in the streets of Syria and Damascus, especially. They know what that was like. And I think that it's important also to the general American public to understand the importance of this lesson, that the dictators ultimately lose. The dictators ultimately lose out, and the people win. Freedom wins. That's the message you hope that Donald Trump is taking in. Donald Trump, who famously said, I want to be dictator on just the first day. I may just need one day. I hope he's like loosening up on that claim of wanting to be dictator on day one. Although if he gets his nominees in, the people who will just automatically know what the boss wants, and they'll do it. And it's like he's not dictating anything. He's got his automaton saying, yes, we got to go after the immigrants. Yes, we have to go after not just the criminals, but everyone. That's sort of like the line now. Well, I'm not for family. I'm not for splitting apart families, but if we're going to deport one, we're going to deport them all. Right? So you could be a citizen, but if you want to fight the deportation of a family member who is not legally here, sorry, you're all going. That's what Trump says. That's Trump's working belief, which is just crazy. But it's a way of imposing his will, a dictatorial will about the way the law, the way the rules, the way the Constitution should or should not work. And that gets us back to Bashar and why Bashar al-Assad is an important story that you should realize, because he lost. Donald Trump should realize he lost. And if Assad lost, that means, maybe you should rethink this idea of having an American strongman. Know what I mean? Maybe it's just not a good idea. American strongman, maybe not. So I was thinking a lot about that, and thinking more about that because I didn't know if they were going to catch the CEO killer, but now they have. And so we have to talk about that a little bit because it all blends in. Because why do we have this kind of toxic politics? Why do we have this kind of behavior in America? Starts at the top. As they say, the fish stinks from the head, and the head isn't even properly installed until January. But we have been accustomed to the Trump style in his first term. We needed one full term of Biden to try to get free of it. And then the campaign sort of brought it back and actually did the thing that Trump is really good at: get people to vote against their own self-interest. I mean, that is Trump's magic. He can get you to vote for him, even though voting for him hurts you. That is, I mean, that's the gift of salesmanship, right? That's capitalism's, that's a capitalist game. But that's Trump's virtue, if he has one. He can get people to vote for him, even though it's against your own best interest. And he did it, and now this is where we are. We have an America that is polarized. That's the number one word, according to the dictionary, according to Webster's, polarization. Where we live on the extremes. There's no continuum. There's no blend. It's just all polarized. Plus, minus, black, white. It's polar opposites. And it's a toxic landscape, a toxic political and social landscape. But it's based on a kind of aggressive violence, really, right? Anything goes. Leave it to Trump. Trump, who says, I can shoot a person on Fifth Avenue and not lose a single vote. That's Trump. And he's proven that over and over again. And now it's kind of in our American psyche. And so when we have a dispute, it also helps that there's the proliferation of guns and the proliferation of ghost guns and 3D printers, and you can get a gun and not even go through any of the regular channels to properly register. You can just bypass all that. And that's what Luigi Mangione did. Luigi Mangione. And it's funny that we have a guy who, he's a lot like Trump in some ways. Luigi Mangione went to Penn. That's where Trump went, undergrad. He didn't go to Wharton Business School, went to Penn. Wharton is an undergrad. Luigi was there. Luigi's actually smarter. Got an engineering degree. No slouch. He went to a private prep school in Baltimore. He's wealthy. He's just like Trump, and he's kind of like the anti-Trump. Because who did he see as the villain? He saw the rich healthcare providers, the CEOs, as the enemy. And, Mangione's smart enough. Luigi Mangione was smart enough. He was valedictorian of his class in high school. With his talents, he could have done anything within the system, just like relatives who are members of the legislature in the state of Maryland, where he's from. But he's a member of this modern culture where the model is Donald Trump. And there is no patience for traditional ways, traditional values. And everything has to be done quickly, and everything is digital. And, I had a feeling, I was watching the video of Mangione, the gunman, gunning down the United Healthcare CEO, and it was almost like a video game. There was Luigi Mangione taking out his gun and silence of the suppressor and knowing how to shoot. It was like his own video game. And that is how it played out in real life. He went after and got the CEO of United Healthcare, went on the loose, And isn't it funny? Isn't it funny that the only reason why Luigi Mangione was caught was because he didn't pluck his eyebrows. He didn't pluck his eyebrows. Do you realize if he had plucked his eyebrows, they wouldn't know who they were looking for. Now, this is how many people thought when they first heard the shooter, Midtown Manhattan, they thought maybe it was maybe a homeless man, or maybe they thought it was, I don't know, when you heard hit, it was a hit. What kind of people are hitmen? Did they think Italian mafia? What did they think? Or did they think person of color? Wouldn't be the first time. People looking for a person of color, and it's really a white person. A white person of means, a white person from a wealthy family, a white person who graduated from the Ivy League. And this is something that you see splashed on all the headlines. Ivy League murder suspect. The Ivy League murder. I went to the Ivy League. This almost completes the total takedown of the Ivy League these last couple of years, where actually maybe more like the last couple of years, with the fall of grace of Claudine Gay at Harvard after October 7th, a year ago, last October, and how she handled things. It gave the right wing an opening to go after Harvard for their wokeness, and then that enabled them to go after DEI and everything else, and they were already energized because of the Supreme Court decision against affirmative action. So Luigi Mangione, and he was sort of like, he understood what it meant, because they've been releasing some of his comments on the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, and what Mangione said about the Unabomber's work. He left a review of the manifesto. So he knew what this was about. He was going to be the class leader leading the class war, and he's not a poor guy, but a man of means, and he was going to be the example. And they caught him in a McDonald's, even though he was working there, but he had all this stuff with him like he was going to do something again. And they had his writing or notes that he had written that were already written in the past tense, as if you find me and I'm dead, here's why. Here's why it had to happen. And so we have the case of Luigi Mangione, and we're all wondering why the Ivy League murder suspect is a thing now. And when we have to worry about that, well, we always had, people from the Ivy League are not, they just know how to do things legally. They just know how to do the immoral things legally. But when it comes to gunning down a CEO, well, we're not living in normal times. And who can we blame for that? Who can we blame for establishing that sense in our American culture, society? The incoming president. Which goes back to what I was saying before. I wish he really understands and looks at what happens to Syria and the impact of Assad's leaving Syria. The message to Trump is autocrats don't win all the time. Autocrats lose out to freedom. And normal people love freedom. So if he is trying in any way to set up America with his bogus picks, his nominees for his cabinet, FBI, Kash Patel, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, National Security Advisor, or National Security, Head of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. If he's really trying to set us up for an autocracy with his loyalist minions, I hope he thinks again. I hope he thinks and understands that aggressive dictatorships ultimately do not end up well. I mean, there was Assad in a day forced to flee, left all his Ferraris and Lamborghinis. Palace was looted. It does not end up well for autocrats when the people have their say. And in Syria, it was a coalition of rebel forces, and how they're going to lead, because it's a coalition of Christians and Muslims and minorities. It's going to be a test of democracy there. But for that 1 or 2 jubilant days before they get to the hard stuff, trying to figure out how to ultimately govern Syria, there was sheer joy. Sheer joy. And Donald Trump had to have seen that. He had to have seen it. So what I'm trying to get at is, as you know, because Assad will come up when Tulsi Gabbard is put through the microscope. I mean, how do you trust a Tulsi Gabbard who was consorting with Assad, who was how do you share the secrets with someone who shows that kind of poor judgment, who essentially mouths talking points of Putin, who is, you have to wonder about her loyalties. She is like a female Trump, loyal to herself. That is the worst. So you got to wonder what will happen as the days go on, and you hope that Trump learns his lesson, that if he wants a successful second term, he is a lame duck, but if he wants a successful second term, he moves from the extremes more towards the center and accomplishes more for everyone, but more for the people, less for him. The way the slider is, it's more toward him, and that's got to stop. But let's face it, he's got till January 20th or so to before he's inaugurated, and we're going to see exactly what Trump's about. I think he's got to change a little bit, though. I think if he wants, because look, let's face it, the Democrats, except for where Trump is so extreme that he challenges the Constitution. I mean, there are some things where he sounds reasonable. Not, for a Republican. But there are times when he just absolutely sounds like the worst thing to happen to the Constitution. I mean, to challenge birthright citizenship. You know, he must know that Putin's friends they've they've had baby tours, going from Russia to Miami. Have your baby there. They got to leave these mills where Russian people can, have babies to take advantage of birthright citizenship. It's not the law so much as it is people who go against the grain or who go against the spirit of the law and do things like that. They have no intention of staying here. They come here to have their baby. I mean, the anchor babies, right? I mean, that story's been around, anchor babies. But who are the people who take advantage of anchor babies? Russians in Miami, Florida. Happens. I'm sure it suggests that you don't have to go to the Constitution. It suggests that a simple fix of the law to catch those who take advantage of the law might be enough than to wholesale bring down the 14th Amendment. The Wong Kim Ark case, the Asian American case that withheld birthright citizenship, the 14th Amendment. Anyway, that's one of the issues upcoming. But I think if Trump wants some allies, he's going to have to change. I hope he does. So the latest from the AP, Luigi not doing well in Altoona, Pennsylvania, struggling with deputies, shouted while arriving in court, charged with murder. Now, this is a journalistic AP-style lead. The suspect in the killing of United Healthcare's CEO struggled with deputies and shouted Tuesday while arriving for a court appearance in Pennsylvania, a day after he was arrested at a McDonald's and charged with murder. It's journalism. Close to poetry, but journalism. Packed the lead, first graph. Luigi Nicholas Mangione emerged from a patrol car, spun toward reporters, and shouted something partly unintelligible, referring to an insult to the intelligence of the American people. That's a quote. Insult to the intelligence of the American people, while deputies pushed him aside. Prosecutors were beginning to take steps to bring Mangione back to New York, while new details emerged about his life and how he was captured. The 26-year-old Ivy League graduate from a prominent Maryland real estate family was charged with murder hours after he was arrested in the Manhattan killing of Brian Thompson, who led the United States' largest medical insurance company. Now, Mangione, 26, Ivy League graduate, he went to Penn. Penn loves that. Penn loves to be included as part of it is the Ivy League. But, as soon as you say Ivy League, out goes the specific Penn, and it's spread out to every Ivy League school, even Cornell and Dartmouth. Oh, they get smeared by this. It's of course, Yale and Harvard. But it's almost unfair. It generalizes when the specific is, hey, guy went to Penn. At the brief hearing, defense lawyer Thomas Dickey informed the court that Mangione will not waive extradition to New York, but instead wants a hearing on the issue. Mangione was denied bail after prosecutors said he was too dangerous to be released. Mangione, wearing an orange prison jumpsuit, mostly stared straight ahead at the hearing, occasionally consulting papers, rocking in his chair or looking back at the gallery. At one point, he began to speak to respond to the court discussion, but was quieted by his lawyer. A law enforcement bulletin obtained by the Associated Press said that at the time of his arrest, Mangione was carrying a handwritten document expressing anger with what he called parasitic health insurance companies and a disdain for corporate greed and power. He wrote that the U.S. has the most expensive healthcare system in the world and that profits of major corporations continue to rise while our life expectancy does not, according to the bulletin. You know, if you didn't kill the guy, you might say he'd be a good anti-corporate, anti-health insurance advocate. You don't need the violence. Where did he cross? Why did he cross the line? I mean, that's the question. Here's a line in one of his writings. To the feds, I'll keep this short because I do respect what you do for our country. To save you lengthy investigation, I say plainly that I wasn't working with anyone. And then there's the line that's off quoted in other reports. I do apologize for any strife or traumas, but it had to be done. Frankly, these parasites simply had it coming. And it's just too bad because Brian Thompson, age 50, was just doing what a corporate guy does. He does everything for profit, which is one of the problems with the capitalist system. But it's what we have. And it's one of the reasons why you should be upset with what Donald Trump through Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are trying to do by gutting billions of dollars from the government, taking things that government would do out of government's hands and privatizing it in the way that insurance is privatized, because that's what Mangione was expressing his dismay about. The privatization, the profitization of everything that should be human. And this is where you come to that real crossroads. At some point, Mangione crossed the line and went away from humanity and toward murder, which is immoral. But he felt that it had to be done. He's paying the price. And he's pretty much in his writings confessed to it, perhaps not officially, but Mangione seems to be on a mission, does not seem to be mentally impaired, but he's making his point against the insurance industry. A grandson of a wealthy, self-made real estate developer and philanthropist, Mangione is a cousin of a current Maryland state legislator, valedictorian at his elite Baltimore prep school. He went on to earn undergraduate and graduate degrees in computer science in 2020 from the University of Pennsylvania. The family, of course, is shocked. In 2022, he lived at Surf Break. I don't know where I lived in Waikiki, but he lived there to learn how to surf. But the guys who started Surf Break, which was a co-living space there, said it was considered to be a great guy. No sign that might point to alleged crimes. He had severe back pain from childhood, and that interfered with aspects of his life, from surfing to romance, according to the owner of the little co-op penthouse, surf penthouse. I know that area near Waikiki, probably right there by the mall, or maybe just south. Ala Moana, maybe on King Street. Yeah, I lived there in 2007. I love Hawaii. So he left that place in surf break, returned to Honolulu, rented an apartment. And so, boy, Mangione, I wonder what the San Francisco, there was a San Francisco connection, they said, but I haven't seen anything reported on that. But that's Mangione. I don't know why he crossed the line. It doesn't sound like he had mental illness. It just sounded like he had something to it just sounded like he as a privileged, wealthy, white American, it felt like he had to take a stand. Doesn't excuse what happened. Certainly doesn't excuse murder. But once again, I go back to what I said at the beginning. Who sets a tone for all that we see? President of the United States, and the actions of the president. And when the president commits 34 felonies, gets elected, it tarnishes this idea of the rule of law. It suggests that some people get away with things and others don't. I think that's the real gnawing thing about Luigi Mangione, the suspect, who is alleged to have killed Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare. It looks like Mangione, the evidence will be presented in the court of law. He's, of course, innocent until proven guilty, but he said as much in some writings. He copped to some of the allegations in some ways in his writings. So I don't know what will happen. His lawyers try to control him a little bit today. They didn't do a great job. A lot of stuff is out. And maybe he will want to just take the stand and be heard and continue his almost suicidal rant. Because if he's pretty much confessing, what does that mean? I don't know. It's an interesting case, much more interesting because there's a lot of dissatisfaction amongst people, amongst the populace, in corporate, against corporate greed and the way corporates are governed. And maybe this is the beginning of, a new ugliness, a new toxicity. And of course, the only one who could stop it is someone who is looked upon and revered in America, the President of the United States. And maybe half the people revere him now. I'm talking about the president-elect. Half the people sort of hang with Biden, but they don't have much faith in him either. I mean, especially after the pardon of his son. I tried to defend Biden because he's a human being. But there have been a lot of strong editorials by people who say, wait a minute. If you're saying that Trump is the bad one, and now you do this You lie, say you weren't going to pardon your son, and now you pardon your son. Well, I think a lot of people are being really, rigid about that. But Joe Biden's on the way out. And I guess we'll see how that ends up influencing whether Biden pardons everybody. Although my favorite line was when Andy Borowitz said, yeah, Biden better pardon all the Democrats. Every Democrat who voted for him. Pardon. See, at some point, we just have to come together as a country and say, how do we get this way? And how can we undo it? And I don't know what it's going to take. But, the best hope is Donald Trump comes out a changed man. And everyone just marvels at him and says, oh, wow, he's more moral than I thought. And then, we go along our merry way. But I don't think that's going to happen. And not when he keeps pushing Tulsi Gabbard and Pete Hegseth and Kash Patel. But until something happens, we're going to end up with the Ivy League murder suspect. Everything that we thought, right? Everything we thought was one way, no longer. I mean, what happened? Tarnished our Ivy League. I mean, I haven't even tarnished the Ivy League as much as this guy Mangione. All right, that's going to do it for our show today. Hey, thanks for listening. Check out my columns on substack.com/@Emil Amok. Also on patreon.com/Emil Amok. I'm reading a poem at my local city council today about the virtues of small town life. And I think that is one of the most important things about, when big government gets too big, you go to the grassroots. You go to the locals. Maybe big cities too big city. You got to go to small towns where you know the people who are voting for you. I mean, that's sort of the virtue of Congress, right? Because they're, once they're done with the gerrymandering, you know the districts, and then you know where people are. Knock on their doors. But I think that's the hope, if we can just get back in touch with ourselves and know that we are. I mean, if we had that sense, Brian Thompson, the CEO at United Healthcare, wouldn't have policies that would be severe against people when they look to him for help. Although, frankly, at some point, as a CEO in capitalism, it's taken out of your hands. Shareholder value reigns supreme. So, I don't know what gets us back into that place, but it's a place where we see each other as humans working together on the same team. That's important. Only a president can make it happen on a large scale. And I don't know if that's going to happen or not. So, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I like to close off with a little loving kindness. You know, I haven't even done my laughter yoga because I just haven't felt like laughing. But loving kindness, sending out the, shooting out the love, put it out there to people, comes back twofold. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Emil Amok to you. Till next time.